Okay, so here we're going to take a look at how to generate a report using historical data through the E1 Data Mailbox, how to view that report through the XLReporter Web Client, and how to also design the report so that it includes a responsive view that's optimized for mobile devices. So I'm going to start out by opening up the Template Studio again, and then I'm going to create a new template. I'll call this one Energy, and it is a weekly energy summary. And I'm going to start with an existing workbook file on my system. I'll go up to my desktop, to Templates, Energy Management, Energy Generation. You can see here this is a workbook layout that includes a couple of charts and some formulas based around an energy farm. And if I start filling the data out manually, you can see the Excel objects come to life. And this is something that maybe somebody was going around reading meters and filling things out automatically. But in the era of IoT, we have no reason to do that anymore because we have things like E1 Flexies and XLReporter that can string this workbook up as a live dashboard that I can run from my iPhone. So how do I do that? Well, I'm just going to automate the process of putting data into these cells that drive the report using an XLReporter data connection. So here the Connect menu basically allows you to map data and calculations you're bringing back from a connector, in this case the XLReporter historical database for the mailbox, and map those tags and calculations into a location in the workbook. So here I'll select the connector I want, the SciTech mailbox, and I'll add a new group. And because this report requires me to get things like the daily max and min and total of these KPIs split up over the week, I'm going to use a summary values group. And in here, the first column of the group is going to be a timestamp, which I want to have in this column here, so my day of the week formula can play off of that. Then I want to skip over the formula column and add my 4 KPI columns. So I'm actually going to start by adding a tag in the second column, since the first will be the timestamp. We'll have a blank and then the 4 tags. So I'll select the wind speed tag, which is the ambient wind speed at this energy farm, and I will get the max and the min of that. And then I'm going to get my generator tags, Gen 1 output and Gen 2 output. And because these are accumulators that I'm resetting every day inside of the PLC, I'll grab the last sample of the day on those. Now the time period tab determines how we're going to split this up into daily values over the week. So the duration setting basically determines the whole duration of the query into that database, which is going to be a week. And then we want the values split up every one day over that week. So I can refresh this, and you'll notice that no matter what day of the week I put this on, it locks into the Sunday and runs that week, which is fine. But I think for a live dashboard, what I would really want is to have the 7 days leading up to the date that I select in the calendar control. And we can do that just by slightly altering the time period settings here. Instead of going relative, we can go offset, take away the start on Sunday, and say start 6 days before the date that I pick. And if I do that now and I run for the 6th, you can see it actually starts back in July and goes all the way up through the 6th there. So now I'm going to close this group and name it after the template, use the default naming convention, and then I'm just going to stick it into B10 there in the template. I'll save that. And now we can actually give this thing a spin in the web client. So let me head back over there. Select the energy template this time. I'll select the 6, just like I did in that preview. And when I refresh, you can see the report is generated for that same time frame we saw in the preview. The whole workbook's been brought to life by the data connection landing in these cells. It's been rendered as a web page and displayed inside the web client. Now, one other thing we can do is we can shrink the browser down to the size of a phone. You can see the web portal responds to that by switching to a single screen, single column layout. And I select the same template. I run it for the same time frame. And I get the same data, but it's actually all rearranged so it's optimized for my phone screen. Now, how does XLReporter do that? It's actually all based on the configuration of the worksheets in that template. So if I come back into the energy template and I unhide my report small sheet here, you can see that it has the same layout as that display we saw on the mobile version of the web client. And XLReporter actually supports 3 different display sizes: small, medium, and large. And small is what you'll get if you access the report from a phone, medium is what you get from a tablet, and then large is what you'll get from a desktop device. Now you can enable these views just by creating sheets and tagging the end of the name with _small or _medium for a tablet. If you don't use a medium, the tablet will just get the large display. And I find that works just fine in most cases. The modern tablets that are out there now have pretty big, high-resolution screens, and they don't necessarily need to have a mobile optimized view, though you can enable one if you choose. Now, how is the _small sheet configured? Well, if you recall back to the report sheet, we placed our data connection into this area of the worksheet here, which then drove all these workbook objects to life once data was added. Now, if we look over at the report small sheet, you can see that things like this chart series, for example, are actually mapped back to the report sheet. So they're actually driving off the same exact data that we already have coming into the template. And same thing for some of these summary formulas here, like weekday kilowatt hours is mapped to equals report L7. And if we go and look at that cell, sure enough, it's the formula that actually calculates the weekday based on this day of the week column here and the totals. So it really is all driven off of that original data. We're using the report small sheet just to rearrange it. So there's no data connection on the small sheet. It's all just using Excel referencing. And the layout is just arranged into a tall, narrow column like you would have on a phone. And the other piece of the display formatting is based on the page setup configuration. And you can recall, if you've ever used Excel or if you've used XLReporter before, the page setup determines when the document is published as a PDF or a printout, what the formatting will be. So you can think of designing for the web client as just another form of published document. It follows the same page setup guidelines as PDFs and printouts. And in this case, all we did was just add some zoom here, because as you know, when you print documents in Excel, it would probably want to stick this as like a third of the page, and then you get like a postage stamp sized report in the portal on your phone. That's obviously not what you want, so you can come in and increase the zoom. Another tactic you can use is just to enforce one page wide if you want to make a big scrolling column of content. But then you can use this preview tool here, and then more or less this is what you'll see inside the web portal. You can see it's perfectly synced to the display area of the page there. And you can also use the margins here as well. I like to maximize the screen space when I'm making mobile reports just by decreasing the margins all the way down to 0, which maximizes the small screen you would have on your phone. The other piece of running reports in the web portal on demand is the on-demand designer. And so this interface basically controls any variable aspects of the template that have to be entered and how the user is going to enter them. Now, if you recall, when we made the data connection before, we set it to show the 7 days leading up to the date that the user picked on the calendar control there. But how is that calendar control then given to the report? How does it know that's what it has to use? Well, when you add in connections and other objects into your report template, XLReporter will predict the kinds of controls that you'll need. In this case, because we had a data group that required basically an end date for the query, it automatically gave the user a calendar control to pick that, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. Now, because we also imported the template that had 2 sheets, we got this worksheet variable here so that the user can pick which sheet they want to update. And if you recall back to the web client, the controls actually also include this report sheet, which we don't really care about because we always want to update that report sheet here because that's where the data is going. So we can configure that by just removing the picker for this worksheet drop-down list. And then on the Actions tab, we just go and say, instead of updating that worksheet variable the user is picking on the list, we just always force it to update the report sheet. Then when we go back into the web client, we reload that template. We no longer have the pick for worksheet, which we didn't really need, and the report otherwise functions exactly the same and delivers me the small sheet because it detects that I'm running on a small display. Now, by default on a large display, again, all unhidden sheets are shown, which is why this one was hidden by default. So once you're done designing your small and or your medium sheets, you just hide it again. And that way, the large displays will just see everything you have visible here. And then any other display sizes you have defined will show only the appropriate content.